And then you have that meeting 2 weeks later where they say, yeah, it's glioblastoma. She was being treated there and being looked at very closely.
Laura and Professor Van Gool got on straight away, and you could see there's a bit of a chemistry there.
They always made an effort, and it just felt like a comfortable and relaxed environment.
Yeah. IOZK are like a family anyway.
If you'd had to do that at home, you'd have been trying to get an appointment with a secretary who could then fit you in, and that would have, you just didn't have that relationship or that speed of being able to turn around.
They were very quick at saying,
really
what's the
quick.
problem? We'll sort that.
I'm Nicola Nuttall, and I'm the mother of Laura Nuttall, who was diagnosed with glioblastoma in 2018. And this is Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark, and I'm Laura's dad.
So Laura was in her first term at university down in London, and she had been complaining about the odd headache. Nothing too significant, and I'd always had migraine, so I just assumed that she had the same. And she went for a medical because she joined the Royal Navy University unit down there. And they sent her for the physical medical, which she passed fine, and then they sent her to the opticians to have her eyes looked at. And they said they couldn't pass her because they saw some swelling behind her eyes. So they referred her to Moorfields Eye Hospital that night. So that was on a Monday night. And she waited for ages. They eventually saw her and said, we can't see any problems, but we'll refer you to a neurologist sometime in the future. And that was quite late on Monday. Then by Tuesday, we couldn't get in touch with her because she had the worst headache of her life and she'd basically turned off her phone. So Gracie and I then dashed to Preston and got the last train down to London. We had to almost break into her university hall's room because she wasn't answering the door. So the security guard had to let us in, and she was just curled up on the bed. You could see how unwell she was. So we asked them where the nearest A&E was and took her straight there. And it was about 2-3 o'clock in the morning when she went for a CT scan, and the nurse came back and said, I'm really sorry, but you have a brain tumour. And it was the last thing we could have ever expected. So she was scheduled for surgery, and she recovered really well from the surgery. And you can think positively, well, brilliant, she's recovered, it's great, it's going to be fine, it's all going to be fine. And then you have that meeting 2 weeks later where they say, yeah, it's glioblastoma, and all the research that you do when you're thinking what kind of brain tumour could it be, well, that's the one you don't want. As long as it's not that, we can deal with whatever. And of course it was going to be that. And so from that positivity of, yay, she survived the surgery, she came round, she's talking, it's brilliant, she can walk, to knowing that essentially we were given a 12-month prognosis at that point, and to be 18 and told that you've got a year to live. So that was, then we just began, hammering away at the internet, trying to find out what else was available.
Yeah, and then immunotherapy, that word came up, and we started investigating that.
And we did look at initially a vaccine protocol, didn't we? But there wasn't enough tumour tissue saved, even though we went down that route and started raising money for that. So that door was immediately closed at that point, which was also really disappointing.
And in the background to all this, all the community, all our family and friends had started raising money.
People wanted to help, and there was nothing they could do to help. And they just wanted to do something. So even though there was nothing that we were saying we need to raise money for at that stage, they felt that, at least it could help with hospital parking and, the M&S cafe that you have to go into for your lunch every day. And there are lots of costs to a hospital stay, aren't there, as you know? And so it really started from there. And very quickly they organised a race, didn't they? That was kind of the first event. Yeah. And lots of people got dressed up. It was Christmas, and they organised a trail race, really muddy, Father Christmases. And that was really how it began.
It did, and then it kind of escalated from that because we were looking at immunotherapy and alternative treatments, and there is a cost, a huge cost to these. But at that time, that's what we decided we were going to pursue. And so we had a figure that we needed to reach.
So we set up a GoFundMe. Yeah. There was an article that went in the press, and at the last minute I thought, we better set up a GoFundMe, because if they're going to tell the story, then this is going to be a really good opportunity to start the fundraising more seriously. So at the very last minute we asked if we could add that in. And then we were selling hoodies and wish bracelets that are really cheap to buy, and it kind of tailor them to your story, and we sold those in lots of local shops. So it was things like that, and just kind of getting the story out. And
also what did help was the fact that Laura would compile a bucket list of unusual things, Laura being Laura, and it caught the eye of the press, and then in turn the TV media got hold of it, and obviously that helped as well. Spread the fact that we were trying to raise this money, and it kind of escalated from there.
Someone put £10,000 in. Someone we didn't know.
Wow. And they didn't want us to know who it was. It changed her completely, the diagnosis. The way she thought about life and everything changed 180 degrees. And she became very, very compassionate and caring for other people, always looking out for other people. Yeah.
Yeah, she used to be really, really focused, didn't she, on her own career. But then she was coming up with all these things that we could do to make life better for other people. So we were helping out at the food bank and Curry on the Street through COVID. And for her birthday, she wanted us to open up our children's play centre, Giddy Kippers, and invite people to come down that were struggling, having a tough year, or refugees or young carers. And we had a Father Christmas, and we made Christmas dinner for about 250 people.
Yeah, and everyone donated food, and we cooked it, and they all had a Christmas dinner.
Yeah. So we do that.
Yeah, we still do that.
On Boxing Day. And then when the Ukraine war happened, she, despite the fact that she was on chemo at the time and really sick, she's like, right, well, we need to have a family living here. And Gracie was like, what are you thinking? But we did. So, Laura was right. She said, we don't live in a war zone. We've got a spare room. So why can't we do it?
Yeah, the family are living locally now, quite happily and working. So, yeah.
Laura started off with the standard of care. So she had surgery and radiotherapy, 30 sessions are fairly standard, and then chemo at the same time, and then chemo following that, which she was on for 12 months. That's temozolomide in tablet form. And by the July of 2019, so just coming up to a year, then we made contact with Professor Van Gool at IOZK and went out to have a meeting with him.
We were aware of IOZK, and then we spoke to some people who'd been there and recommended it. So we went out for a trip initially, didn't we, just to visit and understand what they did. And we sat down with Professor Van Gool, who patiently explained everything, and it kind of made complete sense to us.
And also, he just seemed to really care for his patients.
He did.
And
yeah.
I think sometimes in the big machine of the NHS, where they're so overstretched, they don't really have the time to have that level of attention and care. And he just felt very reassuring, didn't he? And
He did.
We went to the ice cafe next door and said to Laura, "What do you think?" And she's like, "What? It's every 6 weeks." I think it felt huge at that point.
Yeah.
How on earth can we do it?
We decided we were going to do it alternate trips. So I'd do it, Nick would do it, and then back to me again. We flew and we went into Airbnbs when we were out there, and it was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it was really good. And quite often we'd stay in the same Airbnb, and we liked going to Cologne.
We got to know quite a few people with Airbnbs out there, and we liked them and they liked us, so
and they offered
we
us
got
discounts,
good rates, and that was great. And we went out, and it was almost like a bit of a trip, because the process in IOZK was usually around an hour a day, something like that, in the morning or in the evening.
Because Laura was really well, that meant, she would go back and work on her essays, and she'd shut me out the flat, so I'd have to walk around for a bit, let her get some work done. But then we'd go to the cinema or we'd go out for food, and we just got used to being in the city.
And IOZK are like a family anyway. They all knew your name, and it was a pleasant experience. Laura and Professor Van Gool got on straight away, and you could see there's a bit of a chemistry there. And I'm really glad we went down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, when you were talking to Professor Van Gool, he gave you a plan. This is the plan. This is what we're going to try and do. This is what's happening now. This is what's going to happen, but we're going to do this and we're going to do that. You had a plan, and with that comes hope. And everyone needs hope.
She was being treated there and being looked at very closely. It meant that when the arthritis was an issue and you could see that she was really struggling to work, one of the other doctors, it wasn't Professor Van Gool, said, oh, we can help with that, and found a steroid that Laura was able to take, which meant that she walked out later that day and she was absolutely fine. And I think it was that care and that ability to go, I'll get a prescription for this, or we'll try this and you can do that. And it was felt really quick. You know, if you'd had to do that at home, you'd have been trying to get an appointment with a secretary who could then fit you in. And that would have, you know, you just didn't have that relationship or that speed of being able to turn around.
They were very quick at saying, what's the problem? We'll sort that. You know, they gave her ozone over there, which I'd never even contemplated over here, but they insisted that was a thing.
Yeah, and when they learned something new in the labs there, they would immediately bring that down to the patient. So it wasn't like, well, we'll do some trials and we'll do this. You know, we've done the work. We can see that this works. It's not going to have side effects, and we're going to now try that.
Yeah, it all evolved, didn't it, as they learned things. Even in the time we were there.
Yeah.
You know, the procedure changed slightly. You know, things were added.
We've done some work on curcumin, and we've seen that this is really positive, and we're going to bring that in now. And so, you know, all those kind of things. And it felt like you were at the forefront of research because they would just change things to reflect what the new developments were. I think when we first went out, we expected it to be like a hospital. It's nothing like a hospital at all, is it?
No.
It's more like...
I mean, they are very efficient and they dress...
Yeah. They don't dress in white. They dress in nice green tunics and trainers, and are very approachable. And when you go in the reception area, that doesn't feel like a clinic. It feels more like I don't know, maybe a doctor's surgery, maybe a solicitor's or something.
And then you're shouted in, and your nurse will take you through and talk you through the process. And it's just easy. And they were very accommodating for me, because I used to go in with Laura and just chat to her while she was having her treatment, and getting in the way all the time when the nurse came in. But they were brilliant.
Really supportive, and always sense of humour. They always made an effort, and it just felt like a comfortable and relaxed environment.
Yeah, and they were great, because you chat to them, you get to know about their lives and stuff. It was very unclinical clinic. You know, and Laura kind of looked forward to it, and seeing the same members of staff again. They kept up with her, and they knew she was studying and stuff. So the conversations were always lovely. And
she learnt German on her Duolingo, didn't she? And when she was actually having treatment, she didn't like being bored, so she taught herself Morse code and various other things. She'd be just test me on this, and she was always trying to make sure that she used time the best way that she could. But it was never a challenge, was it?
No. Professor Van Gool was always following Laura's case, and even he used to have one meeting a week when we went out there, and we would update him, and he would tell us what's going on and what was about to happen, etc. And he would always speak. You know, if he was walking past, he saw us in the waiting room, he'd always come for a chat. When Nick gets a lot of mail and emails and people
wanting to know what we did, but not medical people. So everybody that ends up in this position starts from scratch and starts all over again.
Yeah.
So it's just wasting people's time. We need to have some sort of database where you say, well, this looked promising, or there's some anecdotal evidence and this extended life in these cases. Because we just have nothing. We're completely in the dark, and you have to start from learning what is glio. Just tell me it again. You don't even know what the word is.
No.
You can't remember temozolomide. You know, you're just constantly given information about things that don't seem to work.
Yeah.
And then you have to go out into that big, scary, wide world, not knowing whether that's a snake or salesman, or whether that's someone who's just trying to rip you off. You know, there's a lot to learn, isn't there? And it can be a bit of a Shark Tank.
That was one of the things that was very evident to us straight away. Very little information out there. And then we realised that a lot of people had gone through this, and as Nick says, they'd tried things, but it died with the patient, because that information just disappeared. And we felt that people could benefit from that, you know, if it was pooled into one place. So that's what Nick is talking about. So I'm still a big advocate of the cannabis oil, because I think that worked for Laura a lot.
And I think
And if nothing else, it gave her an appetite. So she never looked like a cancer victim, because she still ate. She had an appetite, and if nothing else, it was good for that. I mean, Laura was on so many different supplements and herb things as well, cannabis oil, and we got told time and time again, whatever you're doing, don't stop, because something's working. And it was up to that point, because Laura lasted 4.5 years from a 12-month prognosis, I should say. So something carried her along those ways, and she got a degree in the meantime as well.
And she was well for most of
So she was well for most of that time, and she never lost her sense of humour. Something carried her through that, and we don't know what it is, hand on heart. So maybe discussing those ingredients that Laura was on might help other people, you know.
It's a shame that the information just disappears, isn't it? It's ridiculous, really. When Laura was alive, and we had a tour of the Institute of Cancer Research down in London with Professor Chris Jones, and one of the things we were really shocked by is he explained to us that the slides that he uses and the work that he does, they quite often have to go to the Royal Marsden with Tupperware to get tumour tissue to use, and his researchers and his scientists are literally waiting for tumour tissue.
This is the Institute of Cancer Research.
So Laura felt quite passionately from that point on that when she died, she was going to donate her brain. And there's not an awful lot of information about that. No one really mentions it to you. And when you look at things like organ donation, they only happen if you die in hospital, and really only in a traumatic car accident. If you have a disease, that they don't tend to touch them. So we spoke to our clinical nurse specialist, who spoke to other people, and then we spoke to somebody at the Manchester Brain Bank, and they put that all in order, really. And the day after Laura died, they took her brain, and it's probably another 12 months on, it actually ended up at the Institute of Cancer Research, so it's actually being used there now.